Hello guys, you are welcome to this channel. My name is Samson and you are welcome to Chemistry with Samson. In this lesson, we are going to discuss chemical bonds or chemical bonding. Chemical bonds or chemical bonding. What is a chemical bond? A chemical bond is any force of attraction that exists between atoms, molecules, and ions. So a chemical bond is any force of attraction that exists between atoms, molecules, or ions. Or you see the electrostatic force of attraction that exists between atoms, molecules, and ions. Is that okay? Now, why do we form bonds? A bond is formed in order to enable the atoms achieve a stable configuration, whether it be a duplet configuration or an octet configuration. So bonds are usually formed to enable atoms or the bonding species or the species involved in the bond attain a stable configuration. Is that okay? So please don't forget, a chemical bond is any force of attraction or the electrostatic force of attraction that can exist between or within molecules, between atoms, and between ions as well. Basically, we have two types of chemical bonds. So types of chemical bonds. We have one. We have the interatomic bonds, which is also known as intramolecular. The interatomic bonds or the intramolecular bonds. Is that okay? And we have two. The intermolecular bonds. So we have the interatomic bonds. The interatomic bonds is also known as intramolecular, and two. We also have another group called intermolecular bonds. Let's break them down quickly. Okay, for interatomic or intramolecular, this is the electrostatic force of attraction or the force of attraction that exists between atoms or atoms within a molecule. So for interatomic or intramolecular, the force of attraction between atoms or atoms within a molecule. So for interatomic or intramolecular, it is the electrostatic force of attraction or the force of attraction that exists between atoms. So between atoms, interatomic, between atoms. Intramolecular, atoms within the molecule. Is that okay? So since it can be between atoms, that is why we call it interatomic, and it can also be within the atoms in a molecule. That is also why we call it intramolecular. Is that okay? So for interatomic bonds, this is the electrostatic force of attraction or the force of attraction that exists between the atoms or the atoms within a molecule. We have three basic categories of interatomic bonds. So we have three types of interatomic bonds. So the types. We have one, the Ionic bond, which is also known as the electrovalent bond. So we have the Ionic bond or the electrovalent bond. Two, we have the covalent bond. And then we have three, the metallic bond. So for interatomic bonds, we have three basic categories. That is ionic bonds, or which is also known as the electrovalent bond. We have the covalent bond and also the metallic bonding. Is that okay? What is the meaning of all these three types of bond? We will take them one after the other and explain them in detail. Is that okay? But let me just give you an overview of each of them. When we take ionic bond or electrovalent bond, it is the electrostatic force of attraction that exists between cations and then anions, between a cation and then an anion. That is at the layman's level, the electrostatic force of attraction that exists between a cation and then an anion. We will come into detail. Is that okay? For covalent bond, covalency means sharing of electrons. Is that okay? So for covalent bonding, it involves one, donation and then electron sharing. So for covalent bond, it involves donation and then electron sharing. But based on how the electrons will be donated and again how the electrons will be shared between the atoms involved in the bond, it gives rise to three forms of the covalency. So we are going to talk about a polar covalent bond, we are going to talk about a non-polar covalent bond, and then we are going to talk about a dative or a coordinate covalent bond. Is that okay? So whilst ionic bond is the electrostatic force of attraction that exists between ion, that is a cation, and then an anion. I'll come into detail on it lesson. And then for the covalent bond, I said it involves what? Donation and electron sharing. So the electrostatic force of attraction that arises after electrons are being donated and shared between the atoms involved in the bond. And I said again, based on how the electrons will be donated and how again the electrons will be particularly shared between the atoms involved in the bond, it gives rise to three forms of the covalency, known as the polar covalent bond or covalency, the non-polar covalency, and then the dative, which is also called the coordinate covalent bonding. Is that okay? Bonding. For the metallic bonding, we are going to learn that it is between a delocalized electron and then a fixed positive metal ion. The force of attraction that exists between the delocalized electron and then the fixed positive centers within an atom or an element. We are going to discuss that as well. So that is an overview of interatomic bond or intramolecular bond. Again, interatomic bond is an electrostatic force of attraction or any force of attraction that exists between atoms or atoms within a molecule. The word intra means within a molecule. Is that okay? And I said we have three forms of interatomic bonds or three types of interatomic bonds, namely ionic bonds or electrovalent, covalent bonds, and then metallic bond. So for intermolecular bonds, it is the force of attraction that exists between any two molecules together. So the force of attraction that exists between any two molecules, or the force of attraction that holds two molecules together, two or more molecules together, let me put it that way, two molecules or two or more molecules together is called intermolecular bond. So this bond exists between molecules. So for intermolecular, force of attraction that holds two or more molecules together. That is intermolecular bonds. We have various types of intermolecular bonds we are going to discuss as well. We are going to talk about one. We are going to discuss the dipole-dipole interaction. We are also going to talk about the induced dipole interaction. are going to talk about hydrogen bonds. Is that okay? So we are going to talk about dipole-dipole interaction, induced dipole interaction, and then hydrogen bonding. Is that okay? The dipole-dipole and induced dipole, collectively we call them the van der Waals forces or the van der Waals bonds. So we call them the van der Waals. The van der Waals forces, the dipole-dipole and then the induced dipole interactions. And also I'm going to talk about hydrogen bonding. Now let's take an overview of each type of these. This type of bond exists between polar covalent molecules. It exists between polar covalent molecules. So before we can understand this type of bond, we need to understand what a polar covalent molecule is. And we're going to discuss that as well. This type of bond exists between non-polar covalent molecules. It exists between non-polar covalent molecules. Is that okay? And before we can understand this in detail, unless we've gone through the concept of non-polar covalent bonding. Is that okay? And also, this hydrogen bond also exists between a hydrogen atom attached to a highly electronegative element with a smaller size, which is also bonding with another highly electronegative atom which is attached to hydrogen as well. We'll discuss that one in detail once we get to hydrogen bonding. So that is it for the intermolecular bonds as well. So this is just an overview, an introduction to chemical bonding. We'll take each of the types of chemical bonding in detail and break them down for comprehensive lessons. Is that okay? Again, if this is your first time visiting our channel, don't forget to like, subscribe to our channel, and share with other colleagues to also enjoy our lessons. Thank you.